Dear respected listeners, you are tuning into Buddha's Healing a Sanctuary, where we contemplate the Buddha's teachings to live peacefully amidst the flow of life. The miraculous nature of life and the law of karma operating in the shadows. Amidst the vast human realm and its myriad impermanent fluctuations. If you dedicate a moment of stillness to observe the lives of those around you, you will easily recognize an incredibly diverse and sometimes highly paradoxical picture regarding health. There are those who are born with a robust constitution, living their entire lives rarely falling ill, even if they must toil arduously amidst the harsh elements to make a living. Conversely, there are those who, despite being born into luxury, cared for with the most advanced medical conditions, and eating the most expensive foods, must carry a frail, continuously sick body from year to year. There are sudden illnesses that snatch away the life of a person in their most radiant youth, leaving those left behind in absolute shock and sorrow. Faced with these adversities, humans often look up to the sky and lament. People blame cruel fate, blame a polluted environment, blame genetics, or simply consider it random bad luck falling upon them. Modern medicine, with its monumental advancements, can help us find the physical cause of a disease. It can observe the invasion of a virus or the mutation of a cell. However, medicine cannot answer the most fundamental question. Why, under the exact same living environment and diet, does that virus attack one person and not another? Why can some people with incurable diseases recover miraculously, while others, despite exhausting their entire fortunes, cannot be saved? To fully unravel the depths of these phenomena, we must step beyond the lens of materialism to touch a sacred and absolutely just law of the universe. That is the law of karma, cause and effect. Karma is not a punishment handed down by any supernatural being, nor is it a blind, predetermined fate. Karma is simply the operation of energy. Every thought, word, and action you produce today are the seeds sown into the fertile soil of consciousness. And the health or illness you are currently enduring is the flower, the bitter fruit that has bloomed from those very seeds. The health of a human being, in the end, is the most detailed and accurate statement of the karmic forces that person has generated in the past and in this present life. The worldly delusions in viewing illness and material compensation. There is an incredibly common habit that harbors immense ignorance in the way we treat our own health. Many people, when their bodies are healthy, live immoderately and recklessly. They allow themselves to harm the lives of other species, merely to satisfy the pleasure of their palate, to host extravagant banquets, or to display the authority of a prideful ego. They are willing to trample upon the lives of the weak, devastate nature, and utter toxic words that deeply wound others. They are completely unaware that every single life snatched away, every single tear of a sentient being shed due to their cruelty, is silently generating a dark stream of energy, a heavy mass of unwholesome karma firmly attaching to their own vital life force. When their bodies begin to weaken, when malicious diseases knock on their doors, they use the very money exchanged through deceit or cruelty to buy the most precious medicines, to hunt down rare animals to nourish their fading physical forms. They kill even more lives to extract bile. blood and horns in the desperate hope of extending their own lifespans. But dear listeners, this is an incredibly terrifying and tragic loop. You cannot use the lives of other species to buy back your own life. The resentment, the ultimate agony of the slaughtered creatures will never vanish. They transform into streams of hateful energy, traveling straight into every single cell and every drop of your blood. The more one attempts to kill to nourish oneself, the heavier the body becomes, the more chaotic the mind grows, and the physical and mental pains become fiercer and more persistent than ever before. Illness cannot be fundamentally healed if we only use medicines to suppress the symptoms, while continuously watering the root of unwholesome karma to grow deeper day by day. Seeking health from the outside by harming other lives is a desperate clinging of souls, drowning in the ignorance of cause and effect. The awakened one's teachings on the root of health and the two actions that most severely deplete merit. The Buddha, the great physician who perfectly understood all dharmas, brought humanity a miraculous prescription to fundamentally heal all illnesses of the human realm. He taught that the deepest root cause forcing a person to endure constant sickness, a short lifespan, or frequent fatal disasters is the karma of killing and the absence of compassion toward all species. The karma of killing is one of the karmic forces carrying the most terrifyingly destructive weight upon a person's merit and health. According to the teachings on karma, there are two actions that most ruthlessly strip away the merit of health, which you must absolutely and immediately abandon. The first merit-depleting act is directly or indirectly killing or torturing the lives of other beings. Any creature in this world, from a massive animal to a tiny insect, when facing death, experiences absolute terror, feels excruciating pain, holds deep resentment, and intensely craves to live. When you ruthlessly snatch away their lives due to sophisticated eating habits, for the greed of profit, or even just for the recreational pleasure of hunting, you have single-handedly sown a seed of deep hatred. The energy of resentment, fear, and agony from the slaughtered animal does not simply disappear. It follows the fibers of meat into the consumer's body. It intertwines with the living space, forming invisible, yet incredibly heavy blocks of karmic debt. It is this very karmic mass that obstructs the pure flow of vital energy within the body, erodes the immune system, and clears the path for pathogens, viruses, and malignant diseases to invade the internal organs. The second merit-depleting act, more subtle yet equally cruel, is coldness, apathy, and finding joy in the suffering of sentient beings. There are those who, though they do not directly hold the knife to kill, feel a sense of pleasure when seeing others slaughter. When witnessing an animal being tortured, or seeing their fellow human beings fall into illness or accidents, instead of feeling compassion, they utter sarcastic remarks, gloat, or gossip with amusement. The Buddha taught that the karma of thought and the karma of speech generate a karmic power entirely equivalent to the karma of physical action. Cruelty in the mind is the sharpest knife that severs the thread of merit and the protection of higher blessings. A barren heart filled with coldness and malice creates a highly toxic internal environment. Such an environment cannot sustain a healthy body. Rather, it is fertile ground for cardiovascular, blood pressure, and neurological diseases to flourish, cultivating compassion, the miraculous medicine that revives all things and nourishes life, to shatter the siege of illness and karmic obstacles. The only and most miraculous path is to ignite the light of compassion. Compassion is not merely a lofty moral concept. It is a biological healing method that brings about the most miraculous efficacy. When you begin to be mindful of the pain of all things, when you decide to stop the act of killing, change your lifestyle, and choose purer meals unstained by the blood and tears of sentient beings, you are performing a major surgery on your own soul. The act of releasing life, rescuing animals standing on the brink of death, or simply giving rise to a thought of pity for a tiny creature, all radiate an incredibly noble and powerful vibrational frequency. The frequency of this pure love has the capacity to penetrate deeply into every cell, dissolving the hateful energies accumulated over many lifetimes and healing the wounds within the internal organs. Our body is a sacred temple, and it is only truly healthy when illuminated by unconditional love. When your mind is overflowing with compassion, you will no longer wish to harm anyone. There will be no more jealousy, envy, or anger. In that state, the dark energies of illness will automatically be repelled, making way for the flourishing of fresh, vital life forces. People who live with a compassionate heart often possess a gentle face, a warm smile, and an extraordinarily resilient vitality, because they are being nourished by the purest energy source of the universe. The karma of health is exceedingly fair and clear. Illness spares no one, but merit can be cultivated by one's own hands. Immediately stopping the acts of killing and nurturing compassion is not only the way for you to escape the torment of illness in this lifetime, but it is also the most precious baggage to walk freely upon the path of awakening. The story of the fierce hunter and the invisible arrow. Let us quietly return to the ancient, dense forests surrounding the sacred city of Varanasi, a place where the shadows of towering trees concealed both the breathtaking beauty of nature and the harsh realities of survival. In a village at the forest's edge lived a man named Mahaka. He was widely known as the most skillful and ruthless hunter in the entire region. Mahaka possessed a body forged of iron muscle, eyes as sharp as a hawk, and a heart seemingly untouched by pity. He took immense pride in his deadly accuracy, tracking and slaughtering wild animals not just for sustenance, but for the sheer thrill of the hunt, and to sell their precious furs and horns to wealthy merchants. Every time he returned to the village, dragging the lifeless body of a magnificent stag or a rare forest creature, he boasted loudly of his triumphs. He was completely deaf to the desperate final cries of his prey and utterly blind to the terror in their eyes. To him, the forest was merely a vast storehouse of meat and trophies, and he was its absolute master. One crisp autumn morning, Mahaka ventured deep into a remote valley. There, he spotted a beautiful golden doe resting in a sunlit clearing, gently nursing her fragile newborn fawn. For a fleeting second, the pristine beauty of the scene might have touched an ordinary heart. But Mahaka only saw a valuable pelt. Without a single heartbeat of hesitation, he drew his heavy bow and released a poisoned arrow. The arrow struck the mother doe directly in the chest. She collapsed instantly, her blood staining the golden grass. The tiny fawn, not understanding death, nuzzled its mother's lifeless body, emitting a high-pitched, heart-wrenching wail of despair and confusion. Mahaka merely laughed, slung the heavy dough over his broad shoulders, and walked away, entirely ignoring the weeping fawn left to starve in the wilderness. Years passed, and Mahaka's wealth grew alongside his reputation. However, the absolute law of karma never overlooks a single deed, and its harvest is always gathered in due time. In his late 40s, when he should have been at the peak of his hardened strength, a mysterious and terrifying illness suddenly struck the great hunter. It began as a sharp, agonizing pain directly in the center of his chest, in the exact spot where his arrow had pierced the golden doe years ago. The pain rapidly intensified, spreading through his veins like liquid fire. His iron muscles withered away into frailty. His skin turned a sickly pale yellow, and he could barely draw a breath without coughing up blood. He lay on his bed, gasping and writhing in agony, surrounded by the expensive furs and trophies he had collected, none of which could offer him a single second of relief. The village healers came and went, shaking their heads in defeat. They could find no physical wound, no poisonous bite, and no fever to explain his rapid deterioration. The pain was entirely invisible, yet it was killing him slowly and ruthlessly. One evening, as the shadows lengthened and Mahaka felt the cold breath of death approaching, a wandering ascetic named Subhuti entered the village. The venerable Subhuti was known to possess the pure eye of wisdom, capable of seeing the deep, hidden currents of karmic energy. Hearing of the hunter's bizarre agony, the monk quietly entered Mahaka's dwelling. The hunter looked up with sunken, desperate eyes. "Venerable monk," he rasped, his voice trembling with agonizing pain, "look at me. I was the strongest man in the valley. Now I am being torn apart from the inside by invisible claws. What curse has fallen upon me? Give me a remedy, and I will give you everything I own." Subhuti stood by the bed, his face radiating a profound, unshakable compassion. He looked deeply into the hunter's terrified eyes and shook his head gently. "Mahaka," the monk spoke, his voice soft but echoing with absolute truth. "There is no external curse upon you, nor is there any physical medicine that can heal an illness born of the mind and the sword. You are not suffering from a disease of the flesh. You are bleeding from an invisible arrow." The hunter frowned in confusion and pain. "An invisible arrow? Who shot me? I have no enemies brave enough to face me. You shot yourself, Mahaka." Subhuti replied calmly. "You shot it years ago, in a sunlit clearing into the chest of a nursing doe. You thought the arrow only pierced the animal, but in truth, the energy of her terror, her excruciating pain, and the desperate wails of her orphaned fawn forged a second, invisible arrow of heavy karma. That arrow has been waiting in the shadows of your consciousness. Now, it has struck your own heart. The agonizing pain in your chest is the exact pain you inflicted upon thousands of innocent lives. Your body is simply forcing you to experience the harvest of the seeds you so violently sowed." The words struck Mahaka with the devastating force of a lightning bolt. In that moment of profound vulnerability, the thick veil of his ignorance tore apart. The memories of all the lives he had brutally ended the terrified eyes. The blood on his hands, the cries of the dying creatures rushed back into his mind not as triumphs, but as a mountain of unbearable, horrifying guilt. Tears, hot and bitter, finally spilled from the hardened hunter's eyes. He wept not just from the physical pain, but from a crushing, agonizing remorse that shattered his soul. I was completely blind, Mahaka sobbed, his voice breaking. I caused so much suffering. I deserve this agony. Venerable Subhuti, is there no forgiveness? Is my soul destined to burn in this hell forever? The venerable monk placed a gentle, comforting hand on the hunter's trembling shoulder. The law of karma is strict, Mahaka. But the power of true repentance and boundless compassion is equally miraculous. You cannot undo the deaths of the past, but you can radically alter the trajectory of your future. If you truly wish to heal, you must stop feeding the fire of destruction and begin watering the seeds of life. Tell me what I must do. The hunter pleaded, pressing his palms together in desperate reverence. You must make an absolute, unwavering vow right here, right now, Subhuti instructed. Vow that for as long as you draw breath, you will never again take the life of any sentient being. Vow that you will use whatever strength you have left to protect the forest and its creatures. Replace the dark energy of slaughter with the radiant light of fierce compassion. Only when your heart becomes a sanctuary for life will the invisible arrow in your chest begin to dissolve. That very night, with a trembling voice and a completely shattered ego, Mahaka took the sacred vow of non-harming. He ordered his servants to burn his bows, his traps, and his hunting spears. He gave away his hoarded wealth to the poor and hungry of the village. The healing was not instantaneous. For many months the pain lingered, a constant, humbling reminder of his past deeds. But as days turned into weeks, a profound, serene peace began to settle over his troubled mind. Every morning, he dragged his frail body to the edge of the forest, bringing fresh water and food to the wounded and starving animals. He sat in silent meditation, radiating loving kindness to all the creatures he had once terrorized. Miraculously, as his heart grew softer and more expansive, his physical body began to recover. The sharp, piercing agony in his chest gradually faded into a dull ache, and eventually disappeared entirely. His skin regained its color, and his breathing became deep and rhythmic once more. Mahaka did not regain his former brute strength, but he gained something infinitely more powerful. A radiant, unshakable vitality born of a pure, compassionate conscience. He spent the remainder of his long, peaceful life not as the master of the forest, but as its most devoted, gentle guardian, awakening to the healing power of non-harming. Dear respected listeners, the story of the hunter Mahaka is a profound, echoing bell of awakening for all of us wandering through this modern era. While we may not wander the forests with poisoned arrows, how many invisible arrows do we shoot into the world every single day? How many lives are sacrificed, directly or indirectly, merely to satisfy the fleeting desires of our palates or to fuel our conveniences? We must deeply understand that the universe is an intricate, vast web of interconnected life. We cannot violently sever the threads of another's existence without violently shaking the very foundation of our own. The illnesses that baffle modern medicine, the chronic pains that refuse to heal, and the sudden loss of vitality are very often the silent, echoing reverberations of the invisible arrows of karma we have accumulated over time. The most profound, transformative medicine is not found in a pharmacy. It is cultivated within the depths of a merciful heart. When we consciously choose to step away from the cycle of killing, when we adopt a lifestyle that honors and protects the sacredness of all living beings, we are actively performing the highest form of self-healing. Compassion is a high-frequency, luminous energy. It acts as a divine, cleansing river that washes away the dark, stagnant blockages of past karmic debts, allowing the pure, restorative life force to flow freely through our veins and organs once again. Let us learn to look at every living creature with the eyes of profound understanding, recognizing that their desire to live and their fear of pain are exactly the same as our own. By laying down our internal weapons of indifference and cruelty, we build an impenetrable fortress of wholesome merit. A heart that beats in harmony with the gentle rhythm of the universe will naturally foster a body that thrives in absolute, resilient health. If you find these reflections meaningful and wish to continue cultivating a path of compassion, healing, and peace every single day, please consider subscribing to the Buddha's Healing channel and leaving a gentle thought in the comments below, so we may continue to walk this beautiful journey of awakening together.